Daisy descended from the Valari research vessel, boots meeting Earth's soil for the first time. The atmosphere was thicker than she expected, heavy with scent and sound. Everything around her shimmered with disorganized life. In place of sterile corridors and filtered air, she encountered unpredictability. Wind tugged at her uniform, sunlight warmed her skin, and the unfamiliar chatter of biological organisms filled the space between buildings. She blinked, adjusting. Her optic implants. Earth's natural light was harsher than the controlled luminance of Valari facilities. The mission brief had warned of overwhelming stimuli, but no briefing could have prepared her for the chaos. A male approached her, taller than average, with wind-swept hair and confident steps. He wore an expression she couldn't categorize, neither hostile nor submissive, simply open. "You must be Daisy," he said, offering his hand. "I'm Alex. Welcome to Earth." Daisy stared at the outstretched limb. Touch-based greetings were primitive, inefficient. Still, she grasped his hand, skin against skin, and something fired in her neural circuits. A spike in temperature. Anomalous. She released him quickly. "I am here to conduct reproductive system analysis," she stated. "Your cooperation has been pre-approved." Alex chuckled, not mockingly, but with a kind of gentle amusement. "Of course, we've got a research center set up for you. I'll give you a tour. Hope you're not allergic to coffee or conversation." She didn't answer. Humor was irrelevant. They walked through the city together, her eyes constantly scanning. People moved unpredictably, engaging in spontaneous physical gestures. Children shouted. Music blared from passing vehicles. Vibrations entered her chest and pulsed there long after the source had vanished. "This planet lacks structural symmetry," she muttered. Alex glanced sideways. "We call it personality." The research center was modest by Valari standards, but functional. Inside, she found shelves of books, tactile instruments, scattered papers, evidence of human inefficiency. Still, the equipment for biological analysis was acceptable. She cataloged each item silently, mentally assigning their usage. Alex leaned against the far wall, arms crossed casually. "You want to start with data or observation?" "Both," she replied. "Your reproductive systems exhibit complex hormonal triggers. I need samples, visual documentation, and ethnographic context." His eyebrows rose, but he nodded. "All right, I'll arrange access to the databases. You'll also have human volunteers for interviews and observation. I require anatomical clarity. Images alone are insufficient." Alex cleared his throat. "We'll ease into that." Daisy turned toward a wall-mounted display. Her fingers hovered over the console as she activated the holographic interface. Images flickered. Diagrams of human anatomy, gestation cycles, hormone interactions. Yet as the images shifted, something strange happened. Her pulse quickened. Her breathing became shallow. Not in response to the data, but to Alex's voice. Behind her. "I'll let you work," he said, turning to leave. "Unless you have questions now?" She didn't. Not yet. That evening, Daisy sat alone in her assigned quarters. The window overlooked a city bathed in orange light. Traffic moved, like blood through arteries. She analyzed her reactions, heat rising under her skin, the erratic pace of her thoughts, the memory of Alex's hand. Valari training mandated absolute neutrality. Emotional corruption led to errors. She initiated a full diagnostic scan. No pathogen, no infection, no system failure. The response was internal. Native.a soft chime alerted her to an incoming message. Alex's name appeared on the display. "Thought you might want to join me for a walk tomorrow. Humans call it taking a break." She didn't understand why, but she stared at the message longer than necessary before replying. "Accepted. 0800 hours." She powered down the screen and lay back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in her existence, sleep eluded her. Not because of discomfort, but because of a question that refused to dissipate. Why did Alex's presence alter her equilibrium? She didn't know, but she intended to find out. Morning sunlight streamed through the research center's glass facade, casting shifting patterns across the tiled floor. Daisy arrived precisely on schedule, boots echoing with clinical precision. Alex stood outside, leaning against a rail, a steaming cup in his hand, and that ever-present, unreadable smirk playing on his lips. "You're punctual," he said, straightening as she approached. "Time is a measurable resource. Wasting it would be illogical," he grinned, holding out the cup. "Try this. Earth's most beloved legal stimulant." She examined the container, sniffed the contents, and raised an eyebrow. "It smells burnt. It's coffee. You get used to it." She took a cautious sip. The taste hit her tongue like bitter smoke laced with heat. Her expression didn't change, but her stomach tightened unexpectedly. This substance enhances performance? "In small doses," he said, gesturing down the walkway. "Come on, the park's this way." They strolled side by side, her gait stiff, his relaxed. The path curved through a patch of greenery, sunlight filtering through swaying branches. Daisy observed everything. Insects hummed, leaves rustled, children darted past, laughing with unfiltered volume. A woman pressed her lips to her partner's cheek before parting ways. Daisy's gaze followed the motion. "What purpose does that gesture serve?" Alex raised a brow. "You mean kissing?" "Yes. Its biological function." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Depends. Comfort, bonding, sometimes desire. None of those are necessary for successful reproduction." "True. But humans aren't machines. We don't always do things for necessity." She walked in silence for several steps. Then softly, "It seems inefficient." "It is, beautifully so." Her brain catalogued the phrase, though no definition quite captured it. Beautiful. What did that feel like? Back in the lab, Daisy initiated a deep dive into human behavioral archives. Thousands of images scrolled past, embraces intertwined, fingers, lips brushing skin, bodies entwined in emotional urgency. She focused on muscle response, hormonal triggers, biological sequences. The data should have clarified everything. Instead, it made her chest ache. Later, during a lab session, Alex brought in a portable speaker, setting it on the counter beside her. Melody drifted through the air, slow, haunting, laced with something intangible. "What is this?" she asked, not looking up from the hologram she was dissecting. "Music. For entertainment?" "For expression." She turned her head, frowning. "The words are illogical." He chuckled. "Feelings don't always translate cleanly. Why create something that cannot be understood? Because sometimes, understanding isn't the goal. Sometimes it's just feeling." That night, Daisy couldn't sleep. Not due to discomfort, but the absence of stillness inside her. Her thoughts ran in loops. Images of Alex's smile, the way his voice shifted when he was being sincere, the warmth radiating from his proximity. She sat cross-legged on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, trying to slow her breathing. Her internal temperature had risen slightly, heartbeat irregular, neural pathways firing erratically. None of it made sense. The next morning, she confronted Alex before they entered the facility. "I require clarification," she said. He looked up from his tablet. "Okay, shoot. Why does your presence alter my physiological state?" He blinked, taken off guard. "What kind of state?" "Increased pulse rate. Palmar sweat, disrupted sleep, invasive thoughts." He stared at her, jaw slack for a moment. Then he rubbed the back of his neck. "I think you might be experiencing attraction." She narrowed her eyes. "That's a mating drive." "Not just that," he said, voice gentler. "It can be emotional, mental, even irrational. That makes it harder to control. Exactly. She looked away, brows knitted. It's a design flaw. Or it's what makes us human. He reached out, lightly touching her arm. Her breath caught involuntarily. Heat surged through her chest. She didn't move. You okay? He asked, concern softening his tone. She nodded once. I'm processing. When he left to meet a colleague, Daisy remained frozen. Her skin still tingled where his hand had rested. Back in her quarters, she initiated another scan. No infection, no neural degradation. Her systems were intact. This was not malfunction. This was something else entirely, something her programming had never accounted for. Emotion, desire, wanting without logic. For the first time since leaving Valari space, Daisy felt uncertain. And more disturbingly, she didn't want to correct it. Daisy stood before the holographic terminal, fingers hovering motionless above the control surface. The simulation of human intimacy played silently. Two bodies entwined in rhythmic motion, skin against skin, eyes closed, breathing shallow. Her analytical lens tried to reduce it to chemistry, oxytocin release, elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, but the expressions on their faces defied quantification. There was something untranslatable in their connection, something unscripted. Soft knock at the door disrupted her thoughts. She turned. Alex stepped inside, carrying a tray of assorted human snacks and 2 drinks. You missed lunch, he said, placing the tray beside the console. Figured you might be too deep in. Research to notice. I did not request sustenance. He stepped closer, careful not to breach her comfort radius. You keep replaying that moment. Why? Because it's not logical. The act serves a reproductive purpose. Yet in most recorded instances, reproduction is not the objective. Why? Engage in such vulnerability without necessity? Because it's more than mechanics. It's about surrender, trust, sharing something raw. Trust is an unstable variable. He chuckled. Maybe, but without it, that connection doesn't mean anything. She turned to face him fully. You describe it as if it's a ritual. A way it is. She observed his features, the slope of his jaw, the way his mouth lifted when he spoke, the light behind his eyes. She catalogued every detail. His proximity registered as warmth against her skin. Not unpleasant, but deeply disorienting. I require demonstration, she said suddenly. Alex blinked. Excuse me? For the sake of clarity, she continued. An empirical trial. A single instance should be sufficient for comparative evaluation. His smile faded, replaced by something softer, more careful. Daisy, if you're asking with me, that's not a test. That's a choice. A very personal one. I am aware. He exhaled slowly. I need you to understand something. Physical intimacy with another person isn't just about consent. It's about emotional readiness, mutual desire, timing. Your species performs this act even when conditions are imperfect. Yeah, and sometimes we regret it, he said. But when it's right, when both people feel something, it becomes more than an experience. It becomes a bond. A strange heat surged through her chest. You believe I'm incapable of feeling. I think you're afraid you're starting to. His voice was quiet now, stripped of humor. It settled over her like gravity. I don't know what I'm feeling, she admitted. He reached out, not to touch her, but to hold the space between them with intention. Then let's start simpler, she tilted her head. Simpler how? Kissing. Her breath hitched. It's just a gesture, he continued. One you've seen repeatedly in your research. No pressure, no expectations. She didn't move. He waited. After a moment, she stepped forward. Alex didn't close the distance. He let her make the choice. Her eyes studied his lips, searching for instructions that didn't exist. Then, slowly, awkwardly, she leaned in. Their mouths met in a brief contact, soft, unpracticed, uncertain. Her first reaction was confusion. It wasn't electrically charged, nor did her body erupt with data. It was quiet, still. But something inside her shifted, a barely perceptible unlocking. She pulled back, wide-eyed. That felt like silence. He smiled. Sometimes silence speaks the loudest. She sat down without speaking, hands clenched in her lap. Her body tingled in places she couldn't identify. Her chest felt light, yet burdened. Daisy? Yes. You okay? I don't know. He moved toward the console, switching off the simulation. Then maybe we slow down. You're not a machine, even if your people raised you like one. I was designed to resist emotional interference, but emotions don't ask permission. She glanced at him. You didn't initiate. Why? Because I wanted it to be yours. Your choice. Your moment. She studied him. That is rare. Not if you're with the right person. A brief silence hung between them, dense with questions. Then her voice broke the stillness. Do you feel attraction toward me? His answer was immediate. Yes. And you did not act upon it. I'm trying to be respectful. Her voice dropped. Even though I requested the interaction. There's a difference between a request and a desire. You don't have to prove anything. She considered that. Desire is still unfamiliar. Then let's not rush it. You're already feeling more than you realize. She stood, body tense with restrained motion. Her mind spun with contradictions, unfamiliar instincts, unresolved curiosity. I need time. I'll wait, he said. Take all you need. As she left the lab, the corridor felt narrower than usual. Her steps were less precise. Her breathing came faster than necessary. She placed a hand over her chest, where warmth lingered like a residue. She had crossed a line, and nothing felt broken, only different. And for the first time, she didn't want to understand it. She wanted to feel it again. A cold pulse rippled. Through the walls of Daisy's quarters, the light overhead dimmed, then brightened, an alert coded in Valari transmission. Her eyes narrowed. No one on Earth used that frequency. She activated her private terminal, breath caught in her throat before the message even opened. A command code blinked across the screen, unmistakable in its severity. Immediate recall initiated. Emotional. Deviation detected. Compliance expected. Her stomach tightened. She read the message again, hoping some variable might have changed in translation. It hadn't. Valari High Council had monitored her biometric data and deemed her compromised. Her mind no longer functioned within expected cognitive parameters. Sentiment, even unspoken, was considered viral. She stepped back from the screen, pulse quickening, but not from fear. It was something closer to resistance. The lab doors opened without warning. Alex walked in, balancing 2 cups and his usual crooked smile. You've been off-grid today. Figured I'd bring the coffee to you. Daisy remained silent. The tension in her shoulders gave everything away. He froze, smile fading. What happened? She handed him the screen. His eyes scanned the recall notice, expression darkening. They're pulling you out? They believe I'm no longer fit to remain among humans. He exhaled sharply, setting the cups aside. Because you're starting to feel. She nodded. They perceive it as corruption. Emotional instability jeopardizes objective study. Alex paced a few steps, jaw clenched. They're afraid of change, of what you're becoming. I was conditioned to remain detached. I violated that purpose. He moved toward her, slowly. You didn't fail. You evolved. I was not meant to evolve, she said, voice barely audible. Not like this. Alex reached for her hands, and this time she didn't pull away. His grip was firm, grounding her in a moment that defied every protocol she had memorized. What do you want to do? He asked quietly. Daisy stared at their joined hands, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. I don't know. You always have a plan. Not anymore, he squeezed gently. Then let's make one together. She looked up, eyes shadowed with doubt. Even if I stay, I will never fully be like you. I'm not asking for you to change species, he said with a half smile. Just don't let fear make your choices. Silence settled between them, thick and fragile. She pulled away slowly, not out of rejection, but necessity. I need time to process. I'll be here, he said, even if they come. When she returned to her quarters, her belongings were already being archived. Valari protocols worked with ruthless efficiency. Her transport would arrive in 20 hours. She stared at the empty walls, wondering how something so impersonal could feel so suffocating. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Sounds she had once dismissed as noise now felt like invitations. Laughter on street corners, music spilling from passing cars, whispers carried by the wind. Earth had seeped into her, rearranged her. That night, sleep didn't come. Instead, she watched old footage. Her first meeting with Alex, the awkward exchange of greetings, the puzzled expressions that had become familiarity. She replayed the moment they kissed, not for data, for comfort. At dawn, she walked alone through the city. Each corner held a memory, unmarked yet vivid. The world here wasn't ordered, but it was alive, and it made her feel the same. Back at the center, Alex waited by the landing pad. His eyes found hers instantly. You came. My departure is scheduled, she said, voice controlled. The ship arrives in 3 hours. He nodded slowly. I guess this is the part where I pretend to understand. I didn't want to leave without seeing you. I'm glad you didn't. They stood in silence for a moment, sunlight warming their faces. Then she spoke, her voice softer. I was designed to resist affection. But I keep remembering how your hand felt in mine. Alex smiled faintly, pain behind his eyes. And I keep replaying that moment you kissed me. Her chest tightened. I don't want this to be the end. Then don't let it be. Her comms device chimed again. Final boarding alert. She turned her head toward the sky where the Valari vessel would soon descend. If I disobey, they'll strip me of everything. Identity, credentials, autonomy. Then maybe it's time to build something new, he said. She took a step back. I don't know how. I'll teach. You, their eyes locked. Something unspoken passed between them. Not as a theory, not as data, but a promise. She stepped closer, placed her hand against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath. My people will consider this betrayal. Then let it be the most beautiful one they've ever seen. The ship landed behind her, engines humming like a distant threat. She looked one last time at Alex, memorizing every detail. Then she turned, slowly, and walked toward her future, unsure of what came next, but no longer afraid to feel it. The interior of the Valari transport was colder than Daisy remembered. Not in temperature, but in design. Every panel gleamed. With impersonal perfection, every seat aligned without flaw. There was no sound beyond the faint hum of propulsion, no movement but her own. She sat alone, hands resting stiffly on her knees, spine straight against the metallic chair, as though posture might shield her from the unraveling inside. Outside the window, Earth shrank into the distance, a swirl of greens, oceans, and unpredictable beauty. Her chest ached in a way no scan could diagnose. She knew what it was now, even if she lacked the language to name it precisely. Leaving Alex had not restored balance. It had fractured her. Arrival at Valari Prime was efficient. No questions, no greetings. 2 officials met her at the docking bay, their expressions unreadable, uniforms pristine. She followed them through sterile corridors, her boots making no sound against polished floors. The structure felt smaller than it once had, or perhaps her perception had shifted. She was taken to an evaluation chamber, a circular room flooded with pale light. Her neural implants were scanned, physiological readings reviewed, cognitive maps analyzed. The data confirmed what the council feared. Emotional interference had taken root. "You exhibit symptoms of contamination," the lead examiner stated, his voice devoid of tone. "Empathy, longing, attachment, all must be purged." "And if I refuse?" she asked, though she already knew. "You will be declared defective, removed from the scientific registry, exiled." Daisy stared at the projection of her Earth report, still hovering in the air. Pages of observations, biological notes, emotional annotations she'd never intended to record. Her findings were valid, her analysis thorough, but to them, it was her feelings that discredited the work. "Proceed with extraction protocol," the examiner ordered. She didn't move. The assistants approached with the device, cold, silver, shaped like a restraint, but meant for minds. Once attached, it would erase every deviation, reset her to original programming, erase Alex's voice from her memory, sever the spark inside her chest. Her hands clenched. Muscles tightened. She stepped backward. "No," she said. The officials paused, confusion flickering across their otherwise neutral features. "You will comply," the examiner repeated. "I won't," she said, louder now. "I choose rejection over sterilization of thought." They advanced. She moved faster. Her fingers darted toward the console beside the chamber wall, overriding the fail-safes with codes she was never meant to know. Emergency access, experimental controls, forbidden architecture buried beneath protocol. The room flickered. Sirens remained silent. Valari systems weren't built for rebellion. She activated the override. Her emotion suppression module, a sliver of metal fused to her spinal root, disengaged. Pain lanced through her skull as the inhibitor failed. Not physical pain, something deeper. Unfiltered sensation flooded her. Sorrow, rage, relief. Every emotion she'd held at bay now erupted like wildfire. Her knees buckled, but she remained upright. Alarms blared at last. Security protocols activated. She ran. Corridors blurred around her. Officers shouted commands she no longer obeyed. Doors sealed. She forced them open. She moved like someone with something to lose. She reached the auxiliary launch hangar, where a prototype escape vessel had been hidden beneath years of unused permits. Her clearance still granted her access, for now. She entered, sealed the hatch, and engaged launch. The ship trembled beneath her fingers, engines awakening for the first time. As Valari Prime shrank in her rear display, she exhaled. Not because she was safe, not because it was over, because for the first time, she had done something completely, terrifyingly hers. Earth grew larger in the distance, familiar and unpredictable. Alex's voice echoed in her thoughts. Let it be the most beautiful betrayal. She wasn't the same being who had left this planet days ago. Her mind had broken its chains, and now her body followed. Hours later, as her ship entered Earth's orbit, she transmitted a single signal, encrypted, directed, personal. She hoped he'd hear it. Touchdown occurred in a quiet clearing just outside the city perimeter. No welcoming committee, no ceremony, just open air and the chirping of life. She stepped onto the grass, knees weak, throat dry, unsure of how to begin again. Then she saw him. Alex stood a few meters away, hair tousled, eyes wide with disbelief. He didn't move. Not yet. As if afraid, she might vanish if he blinked. She took one step, then another. His expression cracked, relief and astonishment flooding his face like light through shattered glass. "You came back," he said. She nodded, tears forming without instruction. "They tried to erase you." "But they didn't." "No," she whispered. "I wouldn't let them." He closed the distance, arms wrapping around her before she could protest. Not that she wanted to, not anymore. Against his chest, she heard the beat of something ancient, something worth saving. She closed her eyes and let it guide her home. Alex held her like she might dissolve if he let go. Daisy stayed still, absorbing the warmth of his embrace, every heartbeat anchoring her more deeply to this world she had once analyzed from a distance. She hadn't realized how much she missed the sound of his breath, the calm in his presence, the quiet way he made everything feel real. "You're really here," he said softly, pulling back just enough to see her face. "I wasn't sure if you'd make it." "I wasn't sure either," she admitted. "But something inside wouldn't let me forget you." His thumb brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You don't look like someone who ran from her." "Entire planet. I didn't run," she said. "I chose." He smiled, but his eyes searched hers. "Is it safe to ask what happens now?" "I've been stripped of my identity, my credentials, my future according to them. But not according to you," he said. "No," she replied, her voice steady. "I've been rewritten." He led her to his apartment, a small space filled with soft light and scattered books. The atmosphere was nothing like the chambers she'd left behind. It smelled of old pages, warm fabric, and something she couldn't name, but had come to associate with comfort. She stood in the middle of the room, not moving, just watching him. He moved slowly, giving her space without asking questions. The silence between them stretched, not awkward, but full. "Are you hungry?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't want food." His expression shifted, not to surprise, but understanding. "You're certain?" he asked, voice lower. "Yes," she whispered. "I've spent so long observing. Now I want to feel." He reached for her gently. Their fingers met, hesitated, then twined together. There was no urgency in the contact, no command. Just warmth, permission, and quiet invitation. He stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. No pressure. "I know." Their lips met slowly, no hesitation, no doubt. It wasn't like the awkward experiment in the lab. This time, every movement felt deliberate. Her hands slid up his chest, curious, cautious, and increasingly bold. His touch moved along her waist, exploring the curve of her spine as if he were learning her shape from memory. She let herself lean into him, letting instinct guide her instead of instruction. Her heart beat faster, but there was no fear in its rhythm, only presence. They made their way to the couch, limbs tangled in quiet surrender. His mouth traced a path along her jaw, his breath warm against her skin. She sighed, a soft sound that startled even her. "Are you okay?" he murmured against her shoulder. "Yes," she said, voice husky. "More than okay." He smiled. That familiar look of affection softening his features. He moved with care, never rushing, never assuming. Every touch was a question, every kiss an answer. When her hands explored beneath his shirt, he shivered. She noticed. She liked that reaction. It felt like power, but gentler than what she had known. Mutual, equal. His skin against hers was nothing like any texture she had studied. It was alive, reactive, changing with every moment. She marveled at the complexity, the way bodies moved. In harmony, how emotion translated into pressure, pace, pause, time blurred. The world outside disappeared. The data she once obsessed over became irrelevant. All that mattered was the warmth of his chest, the way his voice softened when he said her name, and the way she whispered his into the hollow of his neck. Afterward, they lay entangled, breaths gradually returning to normal. His fingers traced idle circles on her arm. Her head rested just beneath his chin, the rise and fall of his breathing grounding her. "You still sure?" he asked quietly. She nodded against his skin. "Now I understand." He kissed her hair. "Understand what?" "That love isn't chaos. It's connection. It doesn't weaken the mind. It deepens it." "You sound like a philosopher," she smiled. "Maybe I've become human. I hope not entirely. I like who you already are." She shifted to face him, fingers brushing his cheek. "I came here to study biology. What I found was belonging." He caught her hand in his, kissing her knuckles one by one. "Then stay." "I will." Outside, the city buzzed, alive with sound and light. But inside, only stillness remained. Calm, intimate, undisturbed. She had fled a world that demanded silence and order, only to find meaning in laughter, in flaws, in touch. Her story wasn't one of exile, it was one of discovery. She closed, her eyes wrapped in warmth, knowing she had found something her creators had failed to design. A home,